Who are your 4 teams playing in the CFP?
So we got Georgia, SEC winner. We got Clemson. I'm going to change my mind. Clemson, ACC champs. They're in it. Ohio State. And then fight on, baby, USC. Here's the thing with Texas. I think they're really good. I think they're going to win the Big 12. But realistically, I could see them losing to Alabama and losing at Baylor.
Yeah,
I think you're out.
So I fully agree with that with Texas. I think if they lose to Bama, it puts them in a really tough spot to basically have to run the table for the rest of the season. That is why Texas is not in my Final Four or CFP. I'll let you know right now. My CFP is going to really piss people off.
Yeah,
I've got Georgia, Michigan, LSU, and Ohio State, which is just going to really infuriate people if we get 2 Big Ten teams and two SEC teams. But I think that LSU, this is how high I am on LSU. I think LSU goes in the SEC title game undefeated. I already said I think Georgia's doing that. And I think 1-loss SEC teams generally get into the playoff. And I think that we're looking at a similar situation in the Big Ten last year with Ohio State and Michigan potentially both going into the game undefeated. And I think the Big 12 champion is going to eat itself alive with Texas. I think that FSU, like I said, is going to have a loss to LSU in week 1. And then if they lose to Clemson either time, they're in trouble. Or if Clemson loses once or twice, I think they're in trouble. And I think that the Pac-12 eats itself alive as well, just because I think that there's a lot of really good teams out there, and I think that they're all pretty closely matched. So those are my 4. And my national championship is Georgia versus Ohio State. So we get a rematch of the semifinal last year, which was maybe the best game of the season. And I've got the Dawgs winning 3 in a row. But I'm going to caveat this. I don't necessarily think that Georgia's going to win 3 in a row. I just don't know who else to pick to win to win and feel more confident. I feel more confident in Georgia winning than anyone else, but I don't actually think Georgia's actually going to win the title.
If you had to take the field, Vegas gave you the odds, you'd take the field.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Whereas last year, I picked Bama entering the season, and I would have said, if someone was like Bama versus the field, I probably would have said Bama. I would have been wrong, obviously.
It's just
I did pick Georgia heading into the 2021 season, though.
I know, and they did lose in the SEC title game.
And they did win the national championship.
Because Bill O'Brien called an awful game.
It's all that matters.
Alabama should have won that game. I know what you're saying. It's you can't take Georgia just because we're basing it off of precedent. But we don't have substance of why Georgia won't win the national title. Why not? Is Stetson Bennett the pre-loss?
Carson Beck isn't as good. Their defensive tackle position, which has been incredible the last 2 years, led by Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, isn't as good. They lost their projected nose tackle to USC with Bear Alexander transferring there. The secondary isn't as good after Keely Ringo departs. But I think their offense is going to be really good. They're going to run the hell out of the ball. They have 2 really good receivers, and by the way, they have Brock Bowers and maybe the best offensive line in the country, led by the best center in the country in Van Pran.
In 2022, they only returned 4 defensive players, and they were just as good defensively. I think Georgia's getting to the point.
They weren't just as good as defensively. They were still very good, but they were not just as good.
I'm sorry. They went from 12 points to 13 points a game. Come on.
Yeah, but the way that the 2021 defense played was ridiculous.
Not against Alabama.
They were playing base defense the whole game.
So they purposely they're we want 2 teams in the
No, they're we're in. So we're not. They were we're in, and if we have to play Bama for a second time, we'd like Bryce Young to not see our complex coverages live.
That is just bullcrap and unfalsifiable. That is just a ridiculous point. Can you just admit that Alabama, they found the blueprint? If you want to beat Georgia, we saw with Ohio,
and then they got killed and then they lost in the national championship game.
They did not get killed.
I stopped myself after I said that, and they lost in the SEC title game, or they lost in the national championship game.
If Lane Kiffin,
we're not rehashing old arguments. Who's winning? Who do you have in the national championship game?
If Steve Sarkisian was the offensive coordinator instead of Bill Bryan, they win that game.
No, they don't.
And so my playoff. So we got Ohio State, we got Georgia, we got Clemson, we got USC. We got Ohio State, Georgia, chalk, chalk, chalk. Ohio State wins the national title.
I could see it. They would honestly be the team I might pick second or third. LSU would be in that same conversation.
It's going to be Georgia. What am I saying? No, Georgia wins the national title. They're going to win some cheeseball 45-41 game. Ryan Day is going to be hated, and Georgia wins a three-peat. But it's within the margin of error. Those are the two best programs this year. Those are the two teams that can realistically win a national title. And I can feel confident about saying it. I don't think it will be a team outside of those two.
Show some conviction. You already changed your mind once.
Dude, we're predicting something that's happening in January.
Who are you picking? You sticking with Georgia?
I'm going to stick with Georgia.
Well, you just picked Ohio State.
I'm sticking with
You've now
Georgia.
changed your mind twice. Who are you picking?
I just told you, Georgia.
All right, you're picking Georgia. All right.
They're going to win. Power spread.
The
Defense.
Dawgs.
Black
3 in a
power.
row. For first time since the 1930s Minnesota Gophers.